Hello and welcome to an overview of learning-centered instructional approaches. My name is Sean Tuthill and the reference I used for this presentation is called Merging the Instructional Design Process with Learner-Centered Theory, the Holistic 4D Model by Charles M. Regluth and Yunjo An. Thank you for spending your time with me for a few minutes today, so let's get started. So, what are learning-centered instructional approaches? Well, it is a way to maximize every learner's learning and meet their needs in the digital age. They aim to foster the learning of all learners by focusing equally on individual learners and learning. And they also focus on developing real-world skills in addition to content knowledge like higher order thinking, problem solving, and decision making. As you can see here, learning-centered instructional approaches have 6 characteristics to be aware of. They have personalized and customized learning, social and emotional support, self-regulation or self-direction, collaborative learning experiences, authentic learning experiences, and assessment for learning integrated with instruction. Learning-centered instructional approaches have several methods that can be used. These include competency-based learning, learning by doing, case-based instruction, and other several approaches as well. Let's take a moment and look at each one of these in a little more detail. For competency-based learning, or also known as CBI, this is a quick high-level summary of how it works. Learning is the constant, and the amount of time is variable. Whatever is needed to really learn what is important. Also, learners move forward only when they have mastered the content rather than when a predetermined amount of time has passed. Next, we have learning by doing. This can be used as an umbrella term for learner-centered approaches that emphasize experiential learning. This can include problem-based learning, project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, task-centered instruction, and maker-based learning. Now, let's take a moment and look at this list in detail for each one. Our first example of learning by doing is problem-based learning. Initially developed in medical education, problem-based learning, or PBL, begins with the presentation of an authentic problem, which is complex, ill-defined, ill-structured, and open-ended. The problem is chosen based on what content is important to learn, and learners no longer passively receive content from the teacher. Instead, they actively engage in self-directed learning and collaborative inquiry and research to identify learning issues and develop a viable solution to the problem. The second example is project-based learning. Like problem-based learning in that it uses authentic, real-world tasks and takes a learner-centered approach. Both are often used as synonyms. Project-based learning is different from problem-based learning in that it focuses more on the creation of end products or artifacts rather than on solving a problem. Learners are usually provided with specifications for a desired end product, and the expected outcomes drive and shape the learning process. Our third example of learning by doing is inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning, or IBL, is a learner-centered approach that taps into a learner's natural curiosity and actively involves learners in questioning, investigation, knowledge creation, discussion, and reflection. Learners search for and evaluate information, use the information to answer questions, and create knowledge through the inquiry and research process. Similar to problem-based and project-based learning, IBL requires higher order thinking such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluations, and fosters real-world skills such as critical thinking and problem solving. extensively used in science education, and it can be applied to all areas of learning as well. Pretty cool, huh? The fourth example is task-centered instruction. Task-centered instruction, or TCI, is a learner-centered approach that prescribes the use of the following 5 elements: learning tasks, activation, demonstration, modeling, application, integration, and exploration. TCI stems from several theories and models, including first principles of instruction, the 4 components instructional design model, and cognitive apprenticeship. Like other learner-centered approaches, TCI focuses on the application and transfer of knowledge to realistic contexts by having learners apply their knowledge and skills to complete whole tasks, often real-world tasks. Our last example of learning by doing is maker-based learning. Maker-based learning, or MBL, is rooted in constructivism, which suggests that learners learn best when they are actively engaged in the construction or creation of concrete and meaningful artifacts. In MBL environments, learners learn by making physical artifacts that are personally meaningful and valuable. Learning through doing, learning situated within a community, and self-directed learning are highly valued with this method of learning. For our next method of learning-centered instructional approaches, we have case-based instruction, or CBI. Case-based instruction began at Harvard Law School in the 1870s and is routinely used in schools of law, medicine, and business. As you can see, cases can be used in 3 different ways. Cases can function as exemplars, exemplifying problem-solving practices in direct teaching. Cases can function as instructional support during problem-solving activities, and cases can be used to represent problems to learners to be solved. Also, CBI is learner-centered depending on how it is implemented. In learner-centered CBI, learners analyze complex, authentic case studies of historical or hypothetical situations that involve problem-solving and decision-making. The cases should be authentic and representative of situations and dilemmas that are likely to be faced by professionals. For our last section, we will give a quick, high-level overview of other approaches regarding learning-centered instructional approaches. Some other approaches to consider are scenario-based e-learning, self-paced e-learning, flipped classroom, game-based training, and gamification. My apologies for the delay there. For scenario-based learning, here are some aspects to understand. By using realistic scenarios that mimic real-world work situations or challenges, scenario-based e-learning provides an authentic and engaging context for instruction that has some elements of learning by doing and allows learners to learn from their mistakes by providing feedback on their decisions. Scenarios are typically presented as interactive animations with vector-based graphics or still images, and sometimes in a video format. Some scenarios are created with real actors, while others are developed using static images. To create emotionally engaging scenarios, it is important to have a good storyline and use characters, images, and backgrounds that are industry-specific and relatable to learners. For self-paced e-learning, learners are allowed to work at their own pace within certain parameters, and self-paced training is usually implemented in an e-learning format. Also, learners can learn and update their knowledge and skills at times and places convenient to them. Also, did you know, self-paced instruction is very effective for ensuring mastery by all learners, so keep that in mind if you decide to use this method. For the flipped classroom approach, it reverses the traditional classroom in that learners review instructional content, for example, an online lecture, prior to class, and class time is used to engage learners to meaningful, learner-centered tasks that may have traditionally been considered homework. This approach has been used at all grade levels, K through 16, and also can be used in teacher-centered instruction as well. For the game-based training approach, a well-designed game can enhance learner engagement, provide situated learning experiences, and authentic practice in thinking and working in specific roles and contexts, and fosters real-world skills. If you think about it, this is truly a form of learning by doing. Nice. And last on our list is gamification. Gamification refers to the use of game elements or mechanics to motivate people to achieve their goals. It is often used to change behaviors, develop skills, and drive innovation. Although gamification has tremendous potential, it is suffering from growing pains and has a lot of failure due to poor design. A person named Yu Kai Chow, a well-known gamification expert, argues that gamification is so much more than points, badges, and leaderboards and requires sophisticated design. For example, Chow's gamification framework called Octalysis provides research-based guidelines and tips for gamification. So if you have some extra time later, go check out Octalysis and see what it has to offer. Well, that is our high-level, quick overview of learning-centered instructional approaches for today. Again, for reference, this presentation is based on the book Merging the Instructional Design Process with Learner-Centered Theory, the Holistic 4D Model by Charles M. Rigluth and Yunjo Ahn. Thank you for taking the time to view this video, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.